There are some moments in life that you never forget, not because you want to remember them, but because they carve themselves into you. They become part of who you are, like a scar that fades but never disappears. For me, that moment was the day my daughter-in-law shut me out of my own home. Not my home, not anymore. It was their home. I had to learn that the hard way. I remember standing on the porch, my hands trembling, holding the key that no longer fit. She had changed the locks. She didn't tell me. She didn't warn me. I came back from the grocery store, my arms full of bags, and the key wouldn't turn. I tried again and again, thinking I had made a mistake, thinking I had the wrong key. But I didn't. It was the right key. The lock had been changed. I stood there for what felt like a long time, the bags growing heavy in my arms, the afternoon sun warm on my face. And then the door opened. She stood there, my daughter-in-law, her arms crossed, her face hard. She didn't say she was sorry. She didn't explain. She just looked at me and said, "We think it's time you found your own place." I didn't cry. I didn't argue. I just nodded, turned around, and walked back to my car. I drove to a motel on the edge of town, and I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the wall, trying to understand how I had ended up here. How a woman who had once called me mom had shut me out of the home where I had helped raise her children. My name is Dorothy. I am 69 years old. I have lived long enough to know that families are complicated, that love is not always returned, that sometimes the people you give everything to will take everything and leave you with nothing. But I have also lived long enough to know that there is strength in letting go, and that sometimes being shut out is the beginning of finding your way back to yourself. This is my story. To understand what happened, you have to go back to when I first met her. Her name was Claire. My son, Michael, brought her home for Thanksgiving dinner years ago. She was beautiful, with dark hair and bright eyes, and a laugh that filled the room. Michael looked at her the way his father used to look at me, and I thought, this is the one. This is the woman who will make my son happy. I welcomed her with open arms. I cooked her favorite meals. I knitted blankets for their first apartment. I babysat their children, Emily and Jacob, when they needed a night out. I thought we were building something. A family. A bond that would last. I was a widow by then. My husband Richard had passed away 5 years earlier, and the house felt too big, too quiet. When Michael and Claire bought a bigger house, they asked me to move in with them. "It makes sense, Mom," Michael said. "You can help with the kids. We can take care of you." I was hesitant at first. I liked my independence. I liked my little house, with its garden and its memories. But Michael was persistent. "You won't be a burden," he said. "You'll be part of the family. We want you there." So I sold my house. I packed my things, my china, my photographs, my mother's rocking chair, and I moved into their home. I thought I was starting a new chapter. A chapter where I would grow old surrounded by my son, his wife, and my grandchildren. I didn't know that I was walking into a story that would break my heart. The first year was good. I helped with the children. I cooked dinner most nights. I kept the house clean. I thought I was contributing. I thought I was needed. But, looking back, I can see the small signs I missed. The way Claire would tighten her lips when I offered advice, the way she would rearrange the kitchen after I had cleaned it, the way she would take the children to her mother's house for weekends without inviting me. I told myself I was being sensitive. I told myself that every family has its own rhythm, and I just needed to find mine. I tried to be helpful without being intrusive. I tried to give them space. But no matter what I did, it never seemed to be enough. The small tensions started slowly, like cracks in a wall. You don't notice them at first, but one day you look up and the wall is crumbling. It started with the kitchen. I loved to cook. It was how I showed love. but Claire wanted the kitchen to be hers. She would hover when I was preparing dinner, making small comments. "We usually do it this way. The children don't like that recipe. Maybe you should rest. I can take over." I started cooking less. I started staying in my room more. I told myself I was giving her space, but the truth was, I was shrinking, making myself smaller so I wouldn't be in the way. Then came the comments about the children. Emily was 7, Jacob was 5. I loved them more than I can say. I read them stories. I helped with homework. I took them to the park. But Claire didn't like the way I did things. "Don't give them so much sugar. They need to go to bed earlier. I'd prefer if you didn't tell them those old stories. They're outdated." Outdated. That word stayed with me. I was outdated. My ways were outdated. My love was outdated. I was a relic from another time, taking up space in their modern lives. I talked to Michael about it once. I told him I felt like I was being pushed out. He looked uncomfortable, the way he always did when there was conflict. "Claire just likes things a certain way, Mom. You know how she is. Try not to take it personally." Not take it personally. But how could I not? This was my life, my home, my family, and I was being erased, one small comment at a time. The worst was when Claire's mother started coming over more often. She was a nice woman, I don't blame her, but she was welcomed. She was included. She sat at the head of the table on holidays. She was given the guest room when she stayed overnight. I was moved to the smaller room upstairs, the one with the slanted ceiling and the window that didn't close properly. I told myself it was practical. Her mother lived farther away. She needed more space. But I knew the truth. I was being replaced, not all at once, but slowly, like a tide going out, and I didn't know how to stop it. The day it happened, I had gone to the grocery store. It was a Tuesday, nothing special. I bought chicken for dinner and vegetables, and a small cake because Jacob had done well on a spelling test. I was thinking about the meal I would make, about the smile on Jacob's face when he saw the cake. I was happy. I didn't know it was the last time I would feel happy in that house. I pulled into the driveway, grabbed the grocery bags, and walked to the front door. I shifted the bags to one hand and reached for my key. I put it in the lock. It didn't turn. I tried again. Nothing. I thought maybe I had the wrong key, so I checked. It was the right key. The same key I had used every day for 3 years. I stood there, confused, the bags growing heavy in my arms. I rang the doorbell. No one came. I knocked. Nothing. I could hear the television inside. I knew someone was home. I walked around to the back door. It was locked, too. I stood in the backyard, looking at the garden I had planted, the roses I had cared for, the swing where I had pushed Emily and Jacob, and I felt something inside me break. I went back to the front door. I knocked again, harder this time. After a long moment, the door opened. Claire stood there, her arms crossed, her face expressionless. "Claire," I said, "my key doesn't work." She looked at me, and I saw something in her eyes that I had never seen before. Coldness, resolve. "We changed the locks," she said. Her voice was flat, like she was reading from a script. I waited for her to explain. She didn't. "We think it's time you found your own place, Dorothy." Not Mom, not even Martha. Dorothy. Like I was a stranger. Like I was a tenant being evicted. I looked past her, into the house. I could see Michael standing in the hallway, his head down, his hands in his pockets. He wouldn't look at me. He wouldn't say a word. "Michael," I said, "please." He didn't move. He didn't speak. He just stood there, silent, while his wife shut the door in my face. I heard the lock click. And then I was alone. I don't remember driving to the motel. I don't remember checking in. I just remember sitting on the edge of the bed, staring at the wall, the grocery bags still in my hands. The chicken had thawed. The cake was smashed. I set them on the floor, and I sat there until the sun went down. I didn't call anyone. I didn't know who to call. My friends were back in my old town, the town I had left to be with my son. My sister lived across the country. I was alone, completely alone. I stayed in that motel for 3 weeks. I ate vending machine food and watched daytime television and cried when no one could hear me. I called Michael once. He didn't answer. I left a message. He didn't call back. I thought about fighting back. I thought about hiring a lawyer, about demanding my things, about making them see what they had done. But I was tired, so tired. The fight had gone out of me. All I wanted was to find a place to rest. A woman at the motel, the manager, saw me crying one morning. Her name was Patricia. She was kind. She brought me coffee and sat with me and listened while I told her everything. She didn't offer advice. She didn't tell me what to do. She just listened. And sometimes, that is the greatest gift one person can give another. Patricia told me about an apartment complex for seniors on the other side of town. Small units, but affordable. Safe. She gave me the number, and I called. Within a month, I had a place of my own. A small one-bedroom apartment with a kitchen and a window that looked out onto a courtyard. It wasn't much, but it was mine. No one could take it away from me. I went back to Michael's house one last time with a police officer to collect my things. Claire stood in the doorway, watching, while I packed my china, my photographs, my mother's rocking chair. Michael was at work, or maybe he just didn't want to be there. I didn't ask. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't tell Claire how much she had hurt me. I just loaded my car and drove away. I didn't look back, healing and letting go. The first year in my apartment was hard. I was lonely in ways I hadn't expected. I missed the children. I missed the sound of their laughter, the weight of them on my lap, the way Emily would hold my hand when we walked to the park. I missed Michael, even though he had let me down. He was my son, and no matter what he had done, I couldn't stop loving him. I thought about calling him. I picked up the phone 100 times, and 100 times I put it down. What would I say? What was left to say? I started going to a senior center, a few blocks from my apartment. I met other women my age, women who had their own stories of loss and betrayal and starting over. We played cards. We took walks. We shared meals. And slowly, I began to feel like myself again. Not the old self, the one who had been a wife and a mother in a house full of love, but a new self. A self who had survived something she never thought she could survive. I planted a small garden on my balcony, tomatoes and basil and marigolds. I joined a book club. I started volunteering at the local library, reading to children. It wasn't the life I had imagined, but it was a life, and I was living it. I didn't hear from Michael for 2 years. Not a call, not a letter, nothing. I told myself I was okay with that. I told myself I had moved on. But at night, when the apartment was quiet and the only sound was the ticking of the clock, I would think about him. I would think about the boy he had been, the one who used to crawl into my bed after a nightmare, the one who cried when I dropped him off at kindergarten. I would wonder if he ever thought about me, if he ever regretted what had happened, if he ever missed me the way I missed him. And then, one day, the phone rang. The call it was a Saturday afternoon. I was watering my tomato plants when the phone rang. I almost didn't answer it. I let it ring 3 times, 4 times, and then, on the 5th ring, I picked it up. Hello? There was a pause. And then, a voice I hadn't heard in 2 years. Mom? It was Michael. His voice was rough, uncertain. He sounded like he had been crying. Michael, I said. My voice was calm, but my heart was pounding. I'm sorry, he said. I'm so sorry, Mom. I should have called sooner. I should have stood up for you. I should have done a lot of things. I didn't say anything. I let him talk. Claire and I separated, he said, 6 months ago. I've been living alone, thinking about everything, about how I let her push you out, about how I stood there and said nothing. I've been so ashamed, Mom. I didn't know how to face you. I closed my eyes. 2 years of silence. 2 years of wondering. 2 years of learning to live without him. And now he was on the phone, telling me he was sorry. "I'm not asking you to forgive me," he said. "I don't deserve that, but I wanted you to know I love you, Mom. I never stopped loving you. I was just weak." I took a deep breath. The words I had rehearsed, the anger I had carried, the questions I had wanted to ask, they were still there, somewhere. But in that moment, they didn't matter. What mattered was that my son was on the phone. My son was saying he was sorry. "I love you too, Michael," I said. "I never stopped." He cried. I cried. We stayed on the phone for an hour, talking about nothing and everything. He told me about his life, about the separation, about the children. I told him about my apartment, my garden, my friends at the senior center. He came to visit the next weekend. He stood in my small living room, looking at my mother's rocking chair, at the photographs on the wall, at the life I had built without him. He looked older, tired, but he was my son. And I was glad to see him. We didn't talk about Claire. We didn't talk about the past. We just sat together, mother and son, and let the silence be something comfortable instead of something painful. That was 3 years ago. Michael and I have rebuilt our relationship, slowly, carefully. He comes for dinner every Sunday. He brings the children sometimes, and I watch them grow, and I am grateful for every moment. I don't see Claire. She and Michael are divorced now. I don't wish her ill. I don't carry anger in my heart. What happened, happened. It was painful. It was unfair. But it led me here, to this apartment, to this life, to this version of myself that I didn't know existed. I learned something from all of this. Something I want to share with you. Sometimes the people we love will hurt us. Sometimes they will shut us out. Sometimes they will choose someone else over us, and we will be left standing on a porch with a key that doesn't fit. And in those moments, it is easy to feel like we have lost everything, like there is nothing left. But here is what I learned. When the door closes, you can still find your way, not back to the same door, but to a new one, a door that leads to a life you never planned, but that is yours nonetheless. And sometimes, if you are patient, if you are brave, the people who shut you out will come back, not to the same place, not to the same relationship, but to a new one. One built on honesty and regret, and the slow work of forgiveness. The day my daughter-in-law shut me out of my own home, I thought my life was over, but it wasn't. It was just beginning. A different beginning than I had imagined. A harder beginning, but a beginning nonetheless. I am 72 years old now. My apartment is small, but it is mine. My garden is blooming. My son comes for dinner, and my heart, which I thought had been broken beyond repair, has healed. Not perfectly, there are scars. But scars are not weaknesses. They are proof that we have survived. The door closed, but another one opened, and I walked through.